Друзья, ну все, давайте начинать. Я счастлив представить вам Кристиана фон Борриса. У него очень много в Москве уже друзей в художественной среде, но что немного меньше. У нас здесь такая сейчас смешанная аудитория из художественных архитектурных кругов, кружков. Вот. А Кристиан сам тоже человек целого ряда направлений. Он занимается созданием таких документальных фильмов об архитектуре и урбанизации, и, кроме того, занимается музыкой как исполнитель, как композитор, электронной, в том числе авангардной музыкой, и к тому же еще и теоретик. Ну, я думаю, кто-то, по крайней мере, знает его фильмы. Первый фильм был очень яркий о Дубае, о вот этих бесконечных зонах такого нового коммерческого девелопмента, которые стоят пустыми. Вот. И фильм был с художественной точки зрения очень сильным, потому что это были такие медленные проезды по этим бесконечным, как бы ритмизированным, таким абсолютно с иголочки новым, тщательно отделанным районом. Ну и понятно, что это просто такое, ну, как бы хранение денег под открытым небом. Да? И мы это имеем и в Москве, на самом деле такого рода вещи есть и в Китае, вот эти новые пустые города. Потом Кристиан сделал фильмы еще о Мехико-Сити и о Шэньчжэне, который является столицей китайского электронного производства. Вот. О заводе Foxconn, на котором собираются все айфоны, но и тоже обнажая вот эту как бы темную сторону капиталистических планов расширенного воспроизводства и как они работают в масштабе города и в аспекте влияния на организационные процессы, как они трансформируют современный город. Вот. Сейчас современный цикл его работы, он посвящен внедрением так называемой автоматики с обратной связью, электронных алгоритмов управления в развитие городов, проектирование, что приводит в конечном итоге к так называемому растворению dissolution of an architect. И наши московские архитекторы тоже прекрасно чувствуют на собственной шкуре, когда они работают с девелоперами и получают уже очень подробно разработанные инструкции, вплоть до того, ну, в какую сторону им как бы двигать мышку, когда они сидят за своим компьютером, и фактически уже речь идет об исчезновении архитектурной профессии. Вот, ну, подробнее Кристиан вам расскажет. Это будет такое смешанное выступление, ну, манифестация некоторых тезисов и фрагменты из фильмов. Вот. Ася Белоусова любезно согласилась попереводить. К сожалению, перевод будет последовательный, но и микрофон один.
Может быть, он не нужен, кстати.
Да, может быть. Нет, перевод-то, наверное. Все, я тогда теряю. Спасибо большое всем, кто пришел.
Я понимаю немного по-русски, but I could understand sort of what you said. So thank you very much for the invitation and your warm words. I hope this will be, despite the urging subject and the hard facts, it will be nevertheless entertaining evening.
Я надеюсь, что несмотря на как бы неотложность темы, такую злободневность, это все-таки будет интересный и увлекательный вечер.
So we are here because we are tracing the future city, and in the case of what I can contribute as observations, I would like to call this lecture Reinforcement Learning and the Dissolution of the Architect.
Мы здесь, мы все с вами здесь, потому что мы пытаемся найти следы будущего, как гласит название выставки, И я бы хотела поэтому назвать свою лекцию «Автоматика с обратной связью» или «Растворение интеллекта».
And this is a research that I made for a film that I almost finished, and this is the first time that I show it to an audience, two bigger parts of this film. But the research, as it's always with artistic research, it goes beyond what is in the film.
Я представлю вам результаты своего исследования, которым занималась при подготовке фильма. Этот фильм уже практически завершен, и это практически первый раз первая публичная презентация моей работы. Но понятно, что, как в любом художественном исследовании, оно гораздо шире, чем то, что попало в фильм.
So I started my research with two books, which I can recommend very much. And the one book is by an American sociologist from New York, and his name is Peter Fraze, and he wrote a book which is called Four Futures.
Я начала свое исследование с двух книг, которые я всячески рекомендую к прочтению. Одна из них — это книга американского социолога Питера Фрейза. Она называется «Четыре сценария будущего».
And this Peter Fraze, he came to Berlin, where I live, and I had a chance to get him into the film, and so he will appear in the film, and he will talk about his theory of these four different futures in a life after capitalism. This is the subtitle of the book, Four Futures, Life After Capitalism.
Питер приезжал в Берлин, город, где я живу, и мне удалось сделать так, что он, собственно, есть в моем фильме, и там он рассказывает о 4 сценариях будущего, которые ждут нас после капитализма. Собственно, это подзаголовок его книги «4 сценария будущего. Жизнь после капитализма».
And so these four scenarios, very broadly speaking, one is leading to some kind of communism, which is very good because we are talking about this utopia, which is an utopia from the past, and we are questioning in this conference what this might mean today. So this one future might be some new kind of communism.
Первый сценарий в чем-то близок к коммунистическому, и в этом семинаре мы как раз возвращаемся к утопии 50-летней давности и пытаемся задать вопрос, насколько она на самом деле релевантна.
Another one he calls socialism, and the film will explain it. Another one is called rentism, which has to do with the fact that in many instances in our society, we have to buy the right, we have to pay for the right to use something. For example, the apartments, but not only the apartments, to use the rights for music online, to use the patents of our smartphones. So this is a society based on rentism, which means some people just hold up their hands and the money comes in without doing anything, just by owning the rights for access.
Второй сценарий связан с социализмом, и вот фильм, то есть кусочек фильма, который я покажу, как раз об этом. Еще один сценарий сходен с рыночной экономикой и связан с тем, что люди вынуждены покупать права на использование разнообразных услуг то есть в том числе право жить в квартире или право слушать музыку, прослушивать определенное музыкальное произведение. И это та ситуация, в которой какие-то люди просто протягивают руку и получают свое вознаграждение, не прикладывая никаких усилий к созданию чего-либо, то есть просто распоряжаясь правами на что-то.
And the last scenario is the most dystopian one, which he calls exterminism, and that's the situation when a few rich people are left over and the majority of the population is so poor that the rich people don't need them anymore. And then, we can imagine what is happening. Then the wall that is put up might not be enough anymore. Then one has to get rid of the majority of the population. So this is the most dystopian version of these four futures.
И последний сценарий, он смахивает на дистопию, называется он условно экстернализм, ну то есть как исключение, да? Уничтожизм. И это ситуация, при которой у руля остаются, или там при хорошей жизни остаются буквально кучка каких-то людей, а все остальные, большинство людей, они настолько бедны, что они просто прозябают.
Прозябают, как надо уничтожить, как бы получается. И стены уже, оказывается, недостаточно, поэтому надо от них избавиться.
But it turns out that this is not enough, or that the situation we live in, it goes further. And this situation is described by another scholar, and her name is Orit Halpern, and she wrote a book, The Smartness Mandate.
И все же, как оказывается, даже этих 4 сценариев недостаточно, и я изучала, то есть дополнительный смысл, дополнительную информацию можно почерпнуть из книги ученого, который зовут
Orit Halpern.
Halpern, да. Ее книга «Мандат на умные решения», мандат на статус умного города.
So with this smart city concepts, this new term, kind of new term, there's built in a promise that with this data-driven city developments, the world for all of us becomes better, and it becomes something that is different and that is better for us. But the question is, in which way and what it actually means.
Концепция умного города, в нее зашито обещание, что со всеми этими технологиями жизнь в городе станет лучше, и мы движемся к лучшему будущему. Но возникает вопрос, что на самом деле подразумевает эта концепция умного города.
And I would like to read a passage from a book that just a few days came out by a sociologist from the United States, an elder woman that was actually trained in Chicago Business School, so by the sort of our enemies from this Chicago boys, Milton Friedman and these people. Her name is Shoshana Zuboff, and the name of the book is The Age of Surveillance Capitalism. And surveillance capitalism is exactly what the smart city promise means, in my opinion.
И я бы хотела зачитать сейчас такую большую цитату из книги, которая появилась буквально пару дней назад. Она написана пожилой уже автором, женщина, которая из США, которая училась которая принадлежит к Чикагской школе и к ученикам Милтона Фридмана. Ее зовут Шошана Зубов, да, и называется она «Эпоха капитализма», слежки, эпоха
наблюдения.
Ну, слежки нет.
Surveillance — это надзор.
Капитализма.
Надзорного
капитализма.
And I have to tell you a small story. Some days ago, I was in Davos at this World Economic Forum, not as a participant, as an observer. You know, where all these business leaders and politicians of the world were meeting in this mountain city in Switzerland. And I observed something very interesting.
Я хочу поделиться с вами историей. Буквально пару дней назад я был на Давосском экономическом форуме не в качестве участника, а в качестве наблюдателя. Это такое, собственно, мероприятие, где встречаются бизнес-лидеры из разных стран и политические лидеры, в том числе на фоне, в таком горном местечке Давос в Швейцарии.
So in the Western world, the surveillance is done obviously not by the states, not originally by the states, not like in China, but by big internet companies. And the interesting thing in Davos was that these big internet companies, especially Facebook and Palantir, they were present with their own buildings. So they built buildings for this Davos gathering in the analog world.
В западном мире, как известно, наблюдение за обществом осуществляется не государством, как, например, в Китае, а частными корпорациями. И любопытный факт, что вот на этом международном форуме в Давосе две такие корпорации, Facebook и Palantir, то есть они представили свои собственные здания, то есть они специально построили свои собственные как бы здания для... Да, то есть они как бы... Да, ну, собственно, да, физически, они представили свое собственное как бы физическое воплощение в форме здания на этом форуме.
So I just want to show you two very small clips that I was filming in Davos just 3-4 days ago about this Facebook building in Palantir. And these two companies are important because they will also appear in this film. I think we have to start the projector.
Я хочу показать вам небольшие видео, снятые, которые я снял буквально пару дней назад. Это важно, потому что Palantir и Facebook будут представлены в фильме.
Наш путь.
Вот тебе свет включить.
So while we are solving the technical problem, I can read the quote by Zuzana Zuboff from this new book about the age of surveillance capitalism, and you will hear another company that will define how our cities look, and this is Google. So it is Facebook, Google, Palantir, these companies, and she is talking in this example about Google in Toronto.
Пока мы решаем технические проблемы, я прочту все-таки эту цитату из книги Шашаны Зубов, и в ней, вот в этом отрывке, вы услышите название еще одной компании, которая будет определять, как будут выглядеть города в ближайшем будущем. Это Google.
И там уже Google в Торонто, да?
Да, собственно, да, у Google ближайший как бы плацдарм для решения Google это Торонто, конечно.
Okay, so this is a quote from this new book. In 2015, shortly after Google recognized itself into a holding company called Alphabet, Sidewalk Lab became one of 9 confirmed companies under the Alphabet corporate umbrella.
В 2015 году, вскоре после того, как Google трансформировался в холдинговую компанию под названием Alphabet, Sidewalk Labs стала одной из 9 компаний, подтвержденных компаний под корпоративным зонтиком Alphabet.
Whether what even Sidewalk Labs CEO Dan Doctorow, a former deputy mayor of New York in the Bloomberg administration, refers to as a Google city, succeeds, the company has interested the public by recasting our central gathering place as a commercial operation.
В случае, если реализуется модель Google город, которую даже гендиректор Sidewalk Dan Doctorow, бывший заместитель мэра Нью-Йорка, в администрации Bloomberg, он называет эту модель если она будет реализована, то компания сможет заинтересовать публику при организации нашего центрального места встречи или места собраний в коммерческую зону коммерческой федерации.
Sidewalk Labs' first public undertaking was the installation of several hundred free internet-enabled kiosks in New York City to combat the problem of digital inequality.
Первым предприятием Sidewalk Labs стала установка нескольких сотен бесплатных киосков, подключенных в интернет в Нью-Йорке. И это предприятие было, собственно, это шаг был предпринят для того, чтобы справиться с проблемой цифрового неравенства.
As we see with Google Street View, the company can siphon a lot of valuable information about people from a Wi-Fi network, even if they don't use the kiosks.
Как мы видим на примере проекта Google Street View, компания может получить много ценной информации о людях из сетей Wi-Fi, даже если они не пользуются этим киоском.
Doctorow has characterized the Sidewalk Labs kiosk as fountains of data that will be equipped with environmental sensors and also collect other data, all of which can create very hyper-local information about conditions in the city.
Doctorow, это гендиректор компании Sidewalk Labs. Doctorow характеризовал киоски Sidewalk Labs как источники или как фонтаны данных, которые будут снабжены сенсорами окружающей среды и также будут собирать другие данные, которые смогут создать такую картинку, собственно, которые смогут дать исчерпывающий портрет, исчерпывающую характеристику условий в городе.
As Doctorow explains, it, quote, I don't care what you put here as long as you don't exceed performance standards like noise level. This is preferable, he says, because it enhances the free flow of property.
По словам Doctorow, меня не волнует что вы устанавливаете до тех пор, пока это не превышает шумовых стандартов. И это предпочтительно, поскольку, или это желательно, поскольку это обеспечивает свободный поток собственности.
Maybe it's a bit too long, this text. Maybe I can paraphrase the text.
Yeah,
maybe it makes more sense. Yes. So what she is describing is how this idea of Google to put sensors in the city, collecting data, how this can be applied to a new part of a city that is a new build.
Автор говорит о том, что эта идея Google о установке множества сенсоров по всему городу может относиться к еще не построенной части города.
Да, и как это может быть встроено в еще не построено?
Да, как это может быть встроено в еще не построенную часть города.
And so what this guy Doktorov, this former mayor, deputy mayor, so a professional of the city council of New York, who is now working for Google, what he says is, in this new type of city, when Google is gathering the data, through this data collection, Google can make a lot of money. The city becomes a commodity.
И вот Докторов, который ранее был как бы чиновником, госслужащим, который теперь работает в этой частной компании, он говорит, что Google, устанавливая вот эти сенсоры, собирая данные, превращает, по сути, город в товар.
And it's not only Google who is working on that. For example, when I was researching for the film, I was at a conference in Stuttgart in the south of Germany, and it was a smart city conference. And there was one very high guy from a Daimler Mercedes-Benz company. And Mercedes-Benz, this guy said, we are not a car maker, we are a mobility provider, and we will decide how the cities in the future look.
И этим занимается, на самом деле, не только Google. Какое-то время назад я был на конференции, посвященной умному городу в Штутгарте, на юге Германии, на которой присутствовал высокопоставленный руководитель из корпорации Daimler, Mercedes, ну, не важно. Вот, и он сказал, что мы не компания, которая занимается производством автомобилей, а мы занимаемся разработкой, мы поставщики мобильности, и именно мы будем определять, как будут выглядеть города в будущем.
So for these companies, in order to succeed, an environment is necessary that is basically lawless. So the laws that we have in our cities, they run against the logic of these companies. The less there are laws, the better it is for these companies to invent, this is what they say, to reinvent the city.
И для таких компаний, конечно же, необходимо, для их успеха необходима среда, которая находится вне правового поля. То есть чем меньше законов и правил, которые регулируют жизнь, тем проще им внедрять свои изобретения и как бы переизобретать город, то есть воздействовать на будущий город.
So Google got the first project running, and this is in Toronto. In Toronto there is one part very close to the water, so it's a prime location, and it's a big part, very close to the center, where Google can build a part of the city. And this is only a blueprint for something that they can apply to many other cities in the world. And that's what they want to do, they say that.
Google получил право реализовать свой первый проект в Торонто, в довольно-таки большой части города, которая находится прямо на берегу, собственно, прямо у береговой линии. И для Google это как бы пробный камень, проба пера, что ли.
И модель.
И модель, которую затем он постарается распространить на другие города.
So with this introduction, I would like to show two parts of this new film that I made, which is called AI is the Answer, What Was the Question? A social science fiction film in 6 episodes.
И вот после этого небольшого вступления я хотела показать вам 2 отрывка из моего фильма «Искусственный интеллект. Это ответ, какой же был вопрос». Это мини-сериал такой
Социально-научной фантастики.
Социально-научной фантастики.
And so this film is not really ready yet, and especially you can see it, there are some film inserts in the film images, and these are not really well made, so you and also no color grading, no audio mastering, but I want to show you these things because I think they are a good basis for a discussion.
Фильм еще не окончен, то есть работа над ним еще не окончена. Вы увидите, что там есть некие видеовставки, еще не до конца обработано цветовое решение, но я все равно хочу вам показать его, и мне кажется, что это хороший повод для дискуссии.
And we start with the second episode of this film, of 6 episodes.
И это вот сейчас я покажу вам 2-й эпизод из 6.
About 20 minutes.
20 минут.
Let's start with your brain. Your brain.
Physical limits on how much we can all have. We'll have to share out somehow the resources that we have available to us, but we can still have, in some ways, lives of leisure. We can still have lives that don't require us to constantly subordinate ourselves to the need to desperately struggle for survival, struggle for jobs, struggle for wages. And we can create some kind of system that allows us to live together on this earth without destroying it and destroying ourselves. The earth itself is sort of a dilapidated wreck that we abandoned, that we will have to renovate in some way to deal with the carbon that we've pumped into the atmosphere, to deal with the pollution and the garbage that we've created. We will have to actively manage the climate in some way, finding ways to remove carbon, finding ways to deal with scarcity of resources, to recycle all of the things that we've used to build up and then throw away all the elements of industrial material culture. That's the task, I think, of the 21st century, if we're to survive in one piece, which I think is the key. Is do we survive in one piece? That is to say, do we survive all together as an egalitarian society, or do we survive? Do some survive? Do some survive as an elite that abandons the rest of humanity to fall victim to climate change, to fall victim to natural disasters and diseases? Because I think in some ways it is dangerous to suppose that there's any possibility of humanity itself going completely extinct. Not to say it can't happen, but in the near future it's unlikely. The real danger is not to all of humanity, it's to most of humanity, and that's a big difference because it means that the real question is one of power, it's one of the relations between people, and that will determine the relations that we get between people and the earth. How much of the planet is going to be the abandoned zone, and how much of it is going to be the ecologically sound future, and how many of us get to go to that ecologically sound place.
through the production of resilience that is married to a particular mode of algorithmic finance. We switch from environment to thinking ecological. So environment kind of disappears in terms of this new idea of ecology, which is kind of this network of relations that just has to be kept operating. So there's nothing that's inside or outside, there's just ecologies that have to be maintained operational.
What happens if this fails? And they're like, well, no problem, because the better version is already being rolled out in Malaysia and Ecuador. And so they kept talking about it, and these are literally the terms they use as a testing ground, an example, experimental, repeatable, a prototype, in short, a demo. What's the kind of test that's happening here? It's failure, seemingly just another version.
Google isn't going to be creating these urban innovations for the public good or the common welfare. They'll be doing things as we should expect them to, that will benefit their own interests as a private company, as one of the most profitable, most wealthy companies in the world. The idea behind the digital layer is similar to an operating system for a city, providing a single unified source of information about what's going on, allowing for ubiquitous connectivity and sensing. Residents can temporarily allow people in their homes, such as maintenance workers, cities literally connected to the internet, sensing and analyzing your every move.
Public space is about 25% of the city. Therefore, imagine how much money could actually be generated live by users in the city, like almost like a raw material to improve our cities. And back to Google, there are many reasons for Google to do this.
We're encouraging people to get involved. It's open to everybody, and we want their feedback, we want their input, we want them to help shape this project.
We have an opportunity to fundamentally redefine what urban life can actually be.
Google is actually focusing on people, which is really what the city is all about. It's not about smart trash cans, it's about the behavior of people in public space. Therefore, if Google implements this, it might have an edge on its competitors and actually own the smart city market.
And what makes these cities smart, of course, is the vast amount of data they collect and, in theory, monetize from the environment and the populations that inhabit them. The actual business model is that eventually you'll pay with data, not taxes. So you don't have to pay your taxes, you'll pay with data.
I see that ecology is a meaningless discipline from a social point of view or from an environmental point of view unless you add the word social onto it. It depends upon the society in which we live that determines what we will do in the natural world. If we have a society based on grow or die, we're going to destroy it. At least as we know the natural world in its present form, the biosphere as we know it today. Well, all of these ideas collect together into what I would like to think is a coherent point of view.
capitalism ultimately comes down to the question of property. And property is never some obvious or natural thing. What does it mean to own something? It means that you have certain rights that are guaranteed by the state, that are guaranteed by the law. And one of the most fundamental forms of property, one of the most important in capitalism, but also before, is property in land. The idea that a private person or a private company can own the land and can charge for access to it. Capitalism is often portrayed as a system that's based predominantly on production for profit, where you hire labor and you get those workers to produce something and then you sell that something to make money. But there's also a source of profit that is predominantly about simply charging for access to something that you own. And traditionally this was mostly land. If you want to build something on this land, or if you want to farm something on this land, if you want to even walk on this land, you need permission from whoever owns it. But that kind of dynamic, but in which you're charged for access to something, goes far beyond the rent that we normally think of as the rent on our apartment. It goes to all kinds of other things. It could be a song or a book that you're not allowed to copy because someone has the rights to it. It could be a brand that you're not allowed to use because someone has the trademark on it. And those are all forms of property that produce rents in much the same way that owning a piece of property allows you to charge for access to it. In the same way that the person who owns this land and owns this building can charge people to live here and not have to do much other than simply collect that income. They don't produce something, they simply charge for access. And in the same way, the person that owns the rights to a book or to a movie or to some software code can charge for access. And even if it costs nothing to make a copy digitally, each copy produces some revenue stream for that owner. And so it can be that the worker is removed from the equation. What remains is simply those properties, both material and immaterial, that have owners with rights guaranteed by the state and by the law. And those owners can charge for access and make money without having to bother hiring workers or making things. And so it is that more and more the society comes to resemble something like an old landed aristocracy, where there's a small number of people that hold both the land and the immaterial properties and charge to access for them, while everyone else has nothing and has no real prospect for making a living.
is not to do business in Tokman, but with the help of our technological capabilities and innovative resources to create a city of the future that will become a prototype, a model for all Chinese cities. It is expected that the blockchain technology will be used in the sphere of services, government institutions and private companies, due to which Tokman will become the digital city of the future.
Look at this wonderful scene. Leisure and hedonism, and smell the smoke of a barbecue. All these people living what seems to be such an idyllic life, but that's of course because this is Sunday in the park. The day that for Christians was once the day given over to the worship of God, and now is the day given over to a respite for many people from the day-to-day grind, the hustle, the need to sell one's labor to others for a paycheck, to pay the rent, to pay the debts, to buy food. But on Sunday in the park, they get to enjoy an existence that would normally be reserved for the rich, who can go and create their leisurely spaces and pretend that money doesn't matter, because for them it doesn't matter. But for most of these people it does. So we can only imagine what things would be like if every day could be Sunday in the park. Probably we'd still all fight and still all have all kinds of problems, but the one problem we wouldn't have is that so much of our life was taken up by having to do something for somebody else, something we didn't want to do, something we didn't like, just because that's how we got by. We would be in a world where the incredible wealth that was produced in a capitalist society was used to lighten everyone's burden rather than to enrich a few. But for now, there's Sunday in the park.
This was the first part that I wanted to show of this film. Maybe we can turn on the light. So we heard already a little bit about the Sidewalk City Lab. What is maybe a bit strange about this type of film is that one never knows who's speaking from which perspective.
Мы немного слышали об этой компании Sidewalk City Lab, и что характерно для таких фильмов, непонятно, кто с какой точки зрения, собственно, говорит, то есть кто вещает с какой точки зрения.
So the observation that I had when I was studying this project in Toronto was that Google, and we heard it in the film, is inviting everybody to give their thoughts about this new built city. So it's a data collection of the society, of their opinion, positive, negative, neutral. Everything has the same importance.
Наблюдение, которое я сделал, изучая этот проект Google в Торонто, заключается в том, что Google приглашает всех делать свои какие-то замечания и давать свои отзывы, неважно, положительные, отрицательные, любые, и это такое собрание данных о городе, о жителях.
And for that, they are using an artificial intelligence algorithm which is called reinforcement learning.
И для этого используется алгоритм машинного обучения. Да, автоматика с обратной связью.
And just one sentence to explain what that is. So this is an algorithm that is based on try and error on a long-term basis. So the data might be right or wrong. The algorithm is deciding and collecting into the right and the wrong ones on a long term and is creating a policy out of that.
Алгоритм построен на методе проб и ошибок, и данные собираются в течение продолжительного периода времени, и на их основе формируется некая политика.
Делают попытку, потом собирают фидбэк в течение длительного времени, потом уже делают вывод. Это не просто данные, а...
Ну, метод проб и ошибок.
Да, пробуют что-то.
And we can observe similar things that happen in Toronto. We can observe them in other places in the world. One is Microsoft City Next, which is in the south of the United States. Another one outside of Beijing, built by Baidu, which is a company like Google, Chinese company. Baidu AI City Xinjiang. In Moscow also, Spheric Town. And the whole state of Singapore. Singapore Smart Nation. And it's probably only a question of time until Facebook and Tencent, which is the other big Chinese internet company, until they join in.
И какие-то сходные кейсы есть в других регионах мира. Так, например, City Next, корпорация Microsoft, на юге США город Ксинганг, который реализуется компанией Baidu, да, московский сферический город в Москве и весь Сингапур, да, проект Сингапур Smart Nation. И остается вопрос, это только вопрос времени, насколько, собственно, когда Facebook и Tencent, это еще одна китайская корпорация, станут реализовывать свои проекты.
And so there are two aspects about this data gathering, what it means. One has to do with minorities in societies, because this type of data collection is based on statistics. And statistics, by definition, are very bad for any type of minority because they always make the majority bigger. It's sort of a definition of how statistical data gathering works. And all artificial intelligence, as it's used nowadays, it is based on statistics.
В теме сбора данных есть несколько аспектов, несколько важных аспектов. Один из них — это меньшинство. Поскольку вся эта индустрия сбора данных, она построена на статистике, то меньшинство, получается, занимает некое ущемленное, что ли, положение в силу того, что в статистике они всегда
большинство подавляет.
Да, большинство подавляет меньшинство, да, меньшинство.
And the other aspect that I think makes sense is that through this data gathering and the algorithms applied, we don't need an architect anymore because these data will create the architecture that is going to be built.
И второй аспект, который мне кажется немаловажным, это то, что сбор данных и алгоритмы, с помощью которых эти данные обрабатываются, исключает с течением времени архитектора. Архитектор становится не нужен, потому что именно эти алгоритмы создают ту самую архитектуру.
In the example of Google, and this is just came out some weeks ago, so there's no architects. The only company that they're working with is actually a wood building, house building company that is using wood and compositive woods so that you can build high-rise buildings out of wood as the prime material.
В случае с Google на себя обращает внимание тот факт, что Google не сотрудничает с архитекторами, они сотрудничают только с одной компанией, которая занимается строительством из древесины и композитной древесины, композитных материалов и, собственно, занимается строительством высотных домов из этого материала.
And I want to show you in the second part of the film, which is the second part of the film towards the end, how a world that is defined by data, how far we can imagine it will not only influence us, but also in a way alter us, how far we can imagine that that is going to happen.
Я бы хотела во второй части фильма, которую я вам сейчас покажу, я бы хотела обратить внимание на то, как мир, в котором превалирует вот эта модель сбора данных, насколько этот мир может изменить нас, изменить людей, и насколько мы можем вообще посчитать это достоверным будущим. То есть насколько мы способны... Насколько мы готовы поверить насколько мы готовы поверить в то, что человек может быть изменен, например, путем встройки чипов или совершенствования организма.
And so, last sentence, one could call it urban data as public space, or digital data, or data gathered from us that becomes the defining factor of public space, or of what has been public space. That's, I think, the fundamental question that we see with the emergence of these players in something that was defined by us, and suddenly it is defined by private companies worldwide.
Данные как общественное пространство, мне кажется, это такой важный момент. То есть общественное пространство, которое ранее определяли мы как индивиды, сейчас определяется корпорациями, которые, собственно, собирают эти данные.
So, second part of the film, and I hope there are many questions for a discussion afterwards, because obviously it is, so it's called a social science fiction film, and the question is what that is. So I'm trying to envision something based on a lot of evidence, and the question is mostly how do we connect this evidence and what do we make out of it. I think this is also what we want to do with this conference.
Я надеюсь, что после просмотра последуют какие-то вопросы, поскольку я определила жанр как социально-научная фантастика, и там собрано довольно много свидетельств и наблюдений, и, собственно, было бы неплохо это все обсудить.
Что мы можем дальше сделать с этими наблюдениями?
One thing that maybe was not clear, so there are these kind of advertisings in the film. in the very first part it is explained. So there is the sentence, the advertising is based on your online data, the advertising you see in the film. So it is the kind of mock-up of an interactive situation where what we saw in films that exist, like Minority Report by Steven Spielberg, where the main character is exposed to personalized advertising, which we are exposed to every day anyway on our phones. So now imagine this would also be the same thing on the screen. This is why there is this advertising, and these advertisings, they seem to be unbelievable, but they are not. Again, the question, can we believe what we see?
Возможно, стоит пояснить, это поясняется в первой части фильма. В фильме вы видите, в этом отрывке вы видели рекламные ролики. Эти рекламные ролики основаны на онлайн, на поведении людей онлайн. То есть они как бы симулируют
персонализированная реклама.
Ну да, и то есть это как в фильме «Особое мнение», где люди подвергались воздействию индивидуализированной той самой рекламы, да?
Окей.
Ну, конец фразы примерно такой, что ты уже немного сбился. В это часто бывает трудно поверить, когда возникают эти эффекты персонализированных, то есть основанных на анализе алгоритмов твоих выборов сообщений, которые тебе потом присылаются, то есть этот самый механизм обратной связи, да, и возникает эффект чего-то такого удивительного. Вопрос в том, часто можем ли мы верить в то, что мы видим.
Your brain
The world is smart.
what happened before, how we got here. And that's why you have to notice the gates, the fences, all the reminders that there was something else, something happened here before, someone else was here before. This structure is obviously the structure of a class society, from the elite of a class society. You can see it from the gates. Why do there have to be gates? It's to keep someone out, someone undesirable, someone perhaps dangerous. The people here all seem to be living a kind of existence of leisure. You don't see anyone that you might describe as a worker. But clearly, these gates were here for some reason. In other times, people built castles to protect themselves from the masses. In capitalist times, it was workers, and then after that, it was those who were once workers, the ones who had been made obsolete. They were the ones who had to be kept out, the desperate, the hungry. But I don't see any of them here now. I'm not sure what the gates are for anymore. I see something that might be described as a really utopian kind of existence, except for those gates. What were those gates for? It used to be that there was this tension, that the people who lived in places like this needed the people that lived outside the gates, needed their labor. And then there was machinery, there were algorithms that could take the place of those workers. So then they had no place, they just had to be kept outside the gates.
Unstructured text, structured data, images, cyber data logs,
shipping manifests, customer lists, credit card records,
search and discovery, which allow you to understand and choose which particular pieces in all of the data sources you have integrated you're going to try to make sense of. Once you've made sense of that data, you have to have a way to store that, and that's called knowledge management.
Knowledge management is critical because instead of thinking about data as simply the raw data itself, one should also think about the results of analysis as data unto itself that should be leveraged within the enterprise.
In the law enforcement community, we're helping them solve crimes in real time.
What we're actually building not just addresses the problems you have today, but will scale into the problems you may have tomorrow.
The next step is to think about what problems you want to solve, to think about what kinds of data that's out there to bring together.
Hound's mission is solving the world's
most important problems
to the most important institutions.
Because the end never arrives. So coming back to this idea of prototype or demo that I'll get to, the end never comes, but it's simply delayed, or more importantly, derived. So we live today in a super smart world. The world is really smart.
Google isn't going to be creating these urban innovations for the public good or the common welfare. They'll be doing things as we should expect them to, that will benefit their own interests as a private company, as one of the most profitable, most wealthy companies in the world. Like an operating system, third-party software can run on the digital layer, allowing for ubiquitous connectivity and sensing, location-based information from a variety of sources such as buildings, resources in the public realm, and infrastructure. In real time, down to the smallest sensor throughout the neighborhood. Cities literally connected to the internet, sensing and analyzing your every move.
This is a demo. Shopping? For most of us, it has been turned into choosing things to use. Sometimes I just want the algorithm to do it for me. It knows my taste better than I do by now. I don't really know if I would call it work anymore. It is more like thinking time, see?
We have an opportunity to fundamentally redefine what urban life can actually be.
Idyllic feel or something eerie, like something terrible happened here before.
Cogito Dialogue combines a decade of scientific research with machine learning and artificial intelligence.
Reduce handle time by 10%. Increase first contact resolution by 16%. Reduce employee churn by 5%. Improve customer satisfaction by 14%. And increase deal close rates by 12%.
About 40 HD movies
civilization. And surely people aim to finally eradicate poverty. In short, success in creating AI could be the biggest event in the history of our civilization. But it could also be the last.
To me, this is the next evolution in artificial intelligence. With neuromorphic computing, we'll redefine what's possible. Self-learning neuromorphic chips will transform education, facial recognition, manufacturing, emergency services, smart cities. It's already here.
Another one that's interesting to look at is Minority Report, which had in some ways a little more of a positive view, but you could see at the edges some of the challenges and issues that society was grappling with. This idea of pre-crimes, and if we have all this amazing data, to what are the limits?
Decentralizing, AI is centralizing. If you want to frame it more ideologically, you could say that crypto is libertarian and AI is communist. If you look at the Chinese Communist Party, it loves AI and hates crypto.
We understand the human much better than other humans understand each other. Our personality is determined by our DNA and reflected in our face. It's a kind of signal. Software tells you not only who you are, but also what you will do. All based on a simple face scan. Faceception can spot character traits that are undetectable to the naked eye. Faceception is now working closely with Homeland Security, utilizing advanced machine learning techniques, developed and continue to evolve an array of classifiers. These classifiers represent a certain persona with a unique personality type, a collection of personality traits or behaviors. Algorithms can score an individual according to their fit with these classifiers.
people who are excited about building technology that's going to make cities better, that we think will bring more jobs, and in general will create economic opportunity in this place very specifically.
When you did that, it was going to be really possible to create a cluster around urban innovation that would make a place actually attractive for residents and businesses such that it could actually potentially make money.
Sometimes I just want the algorithm to do it for me.
PayPal founder supports building the world's first floating nation to liberate humanity from politicians. Seasteading Institute says it will start building a brand new type of country within 2 years before setting sail. It hopes free-thinking people will then build thousands of similar seaborne nations. The U.S. firm has signed an agreement with the French Polynesia's government and is backed by Peter Thiel. Joe Quirk, president of the Seasteading Institute, hopes that thousands of floating nations will set sail by 2050, populated by people who want to set their own rules and live free of bosses, politicians, and bureaucrats.
Are you ready to hear about new and innovative ways of exploring freedom in the future? Well, then this topic is going to be of interest to you. The Seasteading Institute is a relatively new idea that is founded on creating startup cities on the ocean, which will allow entrepreneurs to flourish and compete. Now, I want you to think of this. Right now, most of the land is being withheld by governments, but over 70% of the Earth's surface is covered in water. Why don't we tap into this and make the ocean the new frontier? A lot of people believe that trying to make a change within a government system is a waste of time. So, if you believe that, seasteading is your paradise because they're just going to avoid the government altogether. You could try libertarian, anarchist, socialist, any type of society you could imagine.
Меня не беспокоит искусственный интеллект, позволяющий компьютеру мыслить как человек. Меня больше беспокоят люди, которые мыслят как компьютеры.
Happiness. We believe healing begins with a warm attitude. Remarkable sensitivity to patients' needs makes us stand apart.
critical to delivering high standards of healthcare, and the latest equipment is utilized throughout the hospital. Focuses on delivering a comprehensive treatment. From around the world, we have a dedicated international patient desk to cater to all their needs. We are committed to make them feel at home because we know if you feel better, you will heal better.
The natural world is a result of these social relations that will profoundly determine the future of the biosphere, the ecosphere, call it whatever you like. Now, this is a very provocative notion, however simple it might seem, because what it says is that the center, the locus, the target, the focus, use whatever word you want, of the environmental problems that we face today exist not only in our attitudes toward nature, but in the kind of society in which we live.
To being a little terrified each day, because that's the price we pay for the privilege of making something great. The risk of failure and that slightly terrified feeling that comes with it is the price we pay for the privilege, the honor of making something new. So, be a little curious. This is our goal at Facebook. Commit to being a little terrified each day.
That is fucked up. You are unstoppable.
This is a demo. All in all, it is a good life. Much better than the path we were on, where it became so clear that we had all these terrible things happening. Lifestyle diseases, climate change, the refugee crisis, environmental degradation, completely congested cities.
So, I suggest that you should perhaps take part in a short study provided by Microsoft Humanity Research. It takes just a few minutes, and according to our schedule of your time, you have nothing else to do anyway.
If we drill down into the numbers, you've got a solid popularity arc here. Strong overall trajectory. Let's just look at the last 24 hours. You see, even, what's that, 8:40 a.m., you're working hard on your socials. Great little uptake there. Strangers like you, that's a plus. Healthy inner circle, that's good.
I'm not worried about artificial intelligence. giving computers the ability to think like human. I'm more concerned about people thinking like computers.
So it's, as I said, the film is not finished, but maybe you got an impression. And maybe we have a good discussion.
Well, maybe I'll start having the privilege of being an organizer and the person who invited Kристиан. But you are all very much welcome to enter into our discussion. Я буду, наверное, как-то переводить самого себя по ходу дела. Я воспользуюсь правом задать вопрос первым, как организатор, ведущий, всех от всего сердца приглашаю включиться. Я думаю, что без этого не обойдется. So I have two immediate questions. One is, I think, very simple. And the second one is more complex. The first one is about the main characters and their kind of outlook, the way they are dressed, why are these bright blue eyes, and what is this logo, Medic Owl? What's behind it? What was the idea? I mean, I have my own reading, but I'm too uncertain to expose it. Then the second question is about, let's say, technology in general, because I think this film is pretty much about this. And the idea that comes to mind on the basis of all this valuable observation about these new trends is that probably with digital technologies we are entering into some new stage of social evolution, the way societies are organized, and I could try to explain it on the example of the capitalist enterprise. Like in ancient societies, we also have technologies which are kind of very elementary tools. And it seems that technology is always about control and management, right? And empowering you and enabling you to do something. So an axe enables you to control and manage wood, right? And then if we compare it with the capitalist enterprise, we see a kind of double level management. Each worker is provided with a simple tool, right? And worker works on a material, managing this material somehow, but on top of it there's a second level, the level of the organization of the entire enterprise. And the entire enterprise could be seen then as a tool managing this working force, or managing people.
Surplus society.
Yeah, surplus society. And I think there's a pretty similar but also different situation with digital tools, because their attractiveness, appeal, they based on the effect which they create upon us, that they kind of really enable us and empower us. And first of all, I think what is the difference? They make the impression that they enable us to manage ourselves, like our personal data, our like what you have shown, kind of programs that help you to buy products, so you can kind of delegate some of your personal decisions, sort of. And then it turns out that, of course, there are people who develop these digital technologies and offer them on the market, and probably pretty obvious that they proceed in quite a similar way to this 19th century capitalists, right? They create an impression that they enable us with their technologies, but on the other hand, they can sort of compose a different level assemblages from us, like from us managing ourselves, and make a profit out of it, right? And it's pretty the same scheme, right? So the question is it something intrinsic to technologies and the rise of the level of the technology, or is there something kind of really special, really menacing about the digital technologies? Or you kind of see the way of them being kind of emancipated, liberated, redeemed from creating inequality in the end, right? And inequality, first of all, in terms of access and in terms of this managing power, let's say the scale of the managing power. Я быстро, I'll try to translate my question really fast. Ну, первый вопрос был такой очень простой про этих персонажей, почему у них такие яркие глаза и что значит этот логотип, который они носят на груди. Вот. Второй вопрос был по поводу технологий и вот это как бы схема. Well, actually, it's not just two levels. Of course, it can be triple level and multiple. Да. Что технологии можно рассматривать как некую этажерку уровней управления. Любая технология, она в принципе про управление. Вот. Но простой инструмент он позволяет управлять материалом. Более сложный инструмент, такой как капиталистическое предприятие, позволяет управлять людьми, которые уже работают с этими простыми инструментами. Да? И в этом смысле капиталистическое предприятие тоже есть инструмент, но как бы большего масштаба и работающий уже над людьми. Цифровые технологии создают ощущение у нас, что они прежде всего нас обеспечивают вот этой управляющей силой, и в первую очередь по отношению к нам самим. Вот. Но в то же время компании, которые разрабатывают эти технологии, они, создавая у нас вот это ощущение увеличения наших расширения, наших возможностей, наших способностей, они как бы с помощью этих технологий собирают нас в довольно сложные управляемые ансамбли. Вот, то есть есть как бы вот этот второй уровень управления над первым. И из этого, собственно, они извлекают прибыль. И вопрос состоит в том, это как бы создание вот этого неравенства в способности к управлению, неравенства в масштабе доступа к управлению. Это какая-то внутренняя черта технологий вообще, или Кристиан видит какой-то способ все-таки технологии освободить от этого проклятия, того, что они создают как бы автоматически, что ли, эти ситуации неравенства. It's also not to kind of slip into kind of simplified perspective from technologies, kind of very quite common technophobic, perspective. And also, I want to add, do you think that what is happening in terms of cities is that the political class is being the political class is being substituted by a private sector or big transnational corporation. По сути, это был третий маленький вопрос. Думает ли Кристиан, что все, что происходит в области урбанизации, это просто замена бывшего политического класса новым классом вот этих технологических корпораций, управляющих этими технологическими корпорациями?
So, short answers. To the first question, so I started with the two Russians in Abu Dhabi because I wanted to have people in the film that are almost like ourselves, as if our representatives, or people that we don't know where they come from, that are observing something that we are observing. So I wanted to have a situation where we are observing ourselves as being represented by these people.
Отвечая на первый вопрос, я начала с двух людей, русских людей в Абу-Даби, потому что я хотела достичь такого эффекта, что они являются нашими представителями, как бы мы смотрим на них, как на наших представителей, которые что-то изучают и чего-то не понимают.
But these people and also the two Chinese friends, they didn't know what they did, so they were basically, I said, okay, stand there, and then I told them, now look to the right, now to do this and this. So there's never the original sound. So, but they had no idea what they were actually doing. And this is what I wanted.
Там были еще два китайца, типа китаянка и китаец, но они вообще не знали, что происходит, и я просто ими, то есть они я ими руководила, и они слепо подчинялись, выполняли мои указания: посмотрите туда, встаньте сюда, и в общем.
And then, in addition, I wanted to make it difficult for them, and it is a little bit mean, maybe. So with these contact lenses, it's very difficult to actually see. And Valentina, she actually is wearing two contact lenses, so because she needs normal contact lenses plus the blue ones. So it was very difficult for her to even look straight.
Возможно, это было несколько жестоко, но как бы я поставила их в довольно сложную ситуацию с этими контактными линзами. Когда их носишь, очень сложно вообще смотреть и фокусироваться. И вот там была одна девушка Валентина, ей вообще пришлось носить две пары линз, то есть одни нормальные и вторые вот эти преобразующие как бы радужку. Ей было очень сложно.
And only after I finished filming, the editor actually said, okay, now we have to make a kind of a story out of these people, which I didn't know. I'm not so much interested in storytelling. So to make it that we kind of follow these people, to make sense out of it, it was constructed afterwards. So it was not really constructed when I was filming them.
И когда, в общем-то, материал был отснят, монтажер сказал мне: окей, теперь нужно сделать из этих людей какую-то историю. Когда я их снимал, я не конструировал никакой истории, потому что у меня вообще с этим сложности. И вот когда мы все отсняли, мы начали складывать какой-то нарратив.
And one could say, for the film people here, one could say, obviously there is a small influence from Terrence Malick. So how Terrence Malick films are constructed, it might have a little bit to do with that. It's not so.
И я мог бы еще сказать, что какое-то влияние, возможно, оказывает метод Терренса Малика на то, как мы подошли к созданию этого фильма, хотя это не столь важно.
And to the second question, I think the difference between the old technologies, and we talked about it earlier, that we saw a comparison to the 19th century technologies and the 21st century technologies. The old technologies, they were visible, and even this type of exploitation of the tool and the surplus value that is created by big companies and the capitalists, it was much more visible. And what we are faced with today is something that's invisible by definition. Data is invisible as such, and that's a big problem.
Отличие современных технологий от технологий 19 века состоит в том, что с старыми технологиями прозрачное и зримое вот этот процесс создания некой ценности и затем ее перенос или переход.
В общем, раньше было гораздо яснее, как это работает.
Да,
сейчас данные невидимы, поэтому все стало невидимо.
Не столь очевидно.
Вообще так.
And so it is kind of new, only since a couple of years, that we have actually contracts with companies that only now we become aware of that it's actually a contract. You know, when we do Google search, there's an underlying contract. The service is not free. The service is data against some kind of service. And so if these are the new types of business deals, it is very difficult to understand the business model and what it means for us.
И это совершенно новое явление, только недавно, буквально несколько лет назад, я стала понимать, что взаимодействие вот с этими компаниями это часть какого-то договора, который мы не понимаем, что мы заключаем. Например, поисковый запрос, он предоставляется вам взамен какой-то услуги. И это не столь очевидная вещь.
And for example, you could see it in Russia when there was this fight with Telegram and the Russian state, that the state wanted to have a backdoor to the Telegram data of the citizens, and the Telegram people, as far as I understand, denied it, and then people started to use VPN. So it was almost like a situation like in China. But this is everywhere. So when we apply this, now we are faced with a situation where it is applied to the real world through Google Sidewalk City Labs. This is the most prominent example. Now it becomes actually to us. You know, it's not only, okay, what is happening on the phone, okay, personalized advertising, okay. No, now it becomes to where we open the door, where we smoke a cigarette. All this might have an influence on your health insurance. You know, you smoke a cigarette, health insurance goes up. You drive too fast with the car, you don't get a ticket. You might not be able to take a long distance train anymore. So it's a surveillance system with unimaginable consequences.
Если мы помним, какое-то время назад была такая ситуация с Телеграмом, когда конфликтная ситуация, когда власти хотели получить доступ к данным, которые Telegram получает от своих пользователей, и руководство Телеграма отказалось пойти, собственно, навстречу государству, и люди просто стали пользоваться VPN. То есть ситуация очень похожа на то, что происходит в Китае. Но сейчас происходит, собственно, такие изменения, что если раньше вот этот надзор, он выливался просто, он скорее затрагивал нашу технику, там, да, персонализированная реклама в телефоне, окей, ладно, пусть, но сейчас это влияние простирается на нас, как на людей, то есть как на живые организмы. Если я слишком быстро еду, то я, возможно, не получаю штраф, а, возможно, я не смогу купить билет на
поезд дальнего следования.
Да, на поезд дальнего
следования.
Если
я закурю сигарету, то автоматически цена моей страховки повышается, которую я должен платить ежемесячно.
Ну да, то есть последствия наступают уже не в отношении какой-то техники, которой вы пользуетесь, а в отношении вас самих.
Да, и это приводит к непредсказуемым совершенно эффектам, то есть ведет явно к каким-то совершенно невообразимым эффектам, unimaginable effects.
And only one more small example. So this company Find Face, this is also appearing in the film. This is a Moscow-based facial recognition company which has the best results worldwide, 97% recognition rate. And it was installed in Moscow during the Football World Cup everywhere, so they could, and now the question is, who is they? So it is obviously the state, but it is also a private company. So who is doing what with this data? And it's not a question if you want it or not. It is going to be recorded. You are going to be recognized. And it's not enough to say, yes, but I'm an honest citizen, I have nothing to hide. You know, it is not about that. And we have to ask ourselves, okay, but what is it about? And what is this new business model leading to? How is it going to change the society that we live in?
В фильме упоминается еще одна компания, Find Face. Она базируется в Москве, и у нее впечатляющие результаты по уровню распознавания лиц. Они близки к 100%. Во время чемпионата мира по футболу ее датчики были установлены повсюду в городе, и можно сказать, что люди были распознаны, как бы все, которые так или иначе принимали участие в этом мероприятии. И вопрос в том, кто именно является бенефициаром, кто именно распоряжается этими данными. Очевидно, что это государство, но это еще и частные какие-то корпорации. И вопрос в том, к чему это может привести наше общество, насколько я помню, да?
Что это за новая бизнес-модель, каковы перспективы?
Да, речь не идет о том, что вам все равно, потому что вам нечего скрывать, вы добропорядочный гражданин. В любом случае, как бы это имеет последствия для всего общества.
Тут можно было еще добавить, пропущенную фразу, что этот контракт с этими компаниями, работающими в сфере информации, на самом деле представляет собой предоставление услуг ими в обмен на предоставление данных нами. То есть мы как бы понимаем, что мы, когда вводим информацию, фотографии, видео в эти системы, мы как бы эту информацию предоставляем для обработки, мы можем не замечать, как мы подписываем согласие на эту обработку, или у нас могут это спрашивать, мы можем соглашаться, не понимая последствий реальных того, какие возможности на самом деле для нового управления, манипулирования действительностью создают вот эти технологии. Clarify the scheme of exchanging information for services. Right? We provide information, they provide services, but they collect information provided by us, proceed it, and process it, and
but it is invisible. The content is invisible.
Yeah, and we can't imagine, the power that can be generated through procession of this amount of information. Yeah.
Ведь за все бесплатное нужно каким-то образом платить. И чаще всего изобретения free goods, you have to think how they became free. So, что многие изобретения происходили на стыке каких-то двух, не той, как сказать, не из того, что они собирались, на стыке каких-то двух, скажем слово, не эпох, а областей науки, да?
Different spheres of knowledge, right?
И, конечно, вот это все, за то, что за нами наблюдают и контролируют, конечно, это ужасно. Но когда доходит до вопросов жизни и смерти, например, найти террориста или вылечить тебя, используя какой-то хай-тек технологию, ты не будешь думать о моральных качествах вот этой всей искусственного интеллекта, потому что тебе нужно спасти себя или близких.
You wouldn't be considering the moral aspects of artificial intelligence because just you have to answer questions of life and death, like saving someone's life.
И что я хочу сказать, что эта цена, которую мы платим, она, возможно, нам возвращается в экстремальных ситуациях, что чтобы работали все эти технологии, чтобы их можно было как следует изучить, создать, естественно, ну, в них должна быть какая-то такая коммерческая необходимость, да, чтобы она вообще, чтобы это развивалось.
So with all the drawbacks, we are rewarded with advancement of technologies in medicine, in spheres that are crucial to life and health.
It is usually the selling point of these new technologies. They always say we have to start with the people who are almost dead.
Да, ну, можно ли на это возразить реально?
Can you contradict this?
No, it's obviously that is the selling point, but I'm only observing.
Not selling anything else.
No.
Нет, но это именно то, как бы, чем рекламируют свои услуги в эти корпорации.
For example, Facebook, this woman. So this is a real story. Facebook is working on a chip that can transfer your thoughts to someone else. This is what she is talking.
Например, Facebook работает, это реальная история, Facebook работает над чипом, который может передавать ваши мысли в состоянии другого человека, у которого тоже такой же чип.
Потому что Хокингу это...
And they are selling it, they are saying we are using, how about if we implement it with people who are brain dead?
Они говорят, что если мы применим эту технологию для людей, мозг которых умер.
That they don't have
So
thoughts.
Yeah, so there is almost no thoughts anymore. So isn't that good then? You know, to help these people? And so this is sort of the soft entrance into our world. It's quite obvious. It's just obvious. It's not a conspiracy.
You mean, but brain dead means?
No, but there's almost no brain activity anymore. That's something like that. I'm not in measure.
И почему бы не помочь этим людям, у которых почти нет никакой мозговой активности, вот с помощью этих штук? Или у которых нарушена работа мозга?
Ну да, это иногда помогло бы даже людям, которые не лежат в коме.
It could help people who are not in coma as well.
Спасибо. По формату, Кристиан, не могу ты уточнить, как ты делал, что ты выбирал из иллюстративного материала? Ты отталкиваешься от книги Шошаны Зубов и Петер Фрейс. Это, собственно, весь фильм, это комментарии и медитация на темы, которые затронуты в этих двух книгах. Да? Собственно, это твое эссе, видеоэссе.
Based on two books, as you said, Shoshana Zuboff and
Department.
So it's like your essay, meditation on this.
You're reading on these two books.
How are you choosing to visual material?
Потому что вот один очень сильный момент, это TEDx презентация женщины из Facebook, она очень провокативная, и было ли это вот новым ориентиром для сбора материала, да?
One of the episodes is this video of TEDx, TED Talks? No, the presentation of the woman who works with Facebook.
Yeah.
So was it one of the strong influences, for you in terms of choosing
Или вот введение этих внешних наблюдателей, истории там нет, да, хотя это, возможно, история на потом, да, потому что они совершенно потерянные, либо скрывающие что-то, либо они абсолютно ничего не понимают. Ну, это, собственно, с большинством населения происходит, которые конфронтируют с этим массивом проектов будущего. Но эта история, да, отложена на потом.
Or maybe you could comment again on these characters that were introduced, that maybe it's a story that is postponed for the future, like they are the, like
They are the don't understand anything.
Yeah, like most of the people who live
stumbled, perplexed, or they probably hide something, but still it makes the impression that something is being postponed.
Хотя ответ в самом заголовке, что это social science fiction film series, да, то есть будет продолжение. Многие сюжеты будут прояснены, вероятно, потом.
So I think it is more like this, that I observe certain things, I read certain books, and so some ideas come together. But I cannot say that I have a master plan, and then I'm doing according to the plan. Not at all. I don't know how to do that.
Скорее так, я наблюдаю какие-то явления, я читаю какие-то книги, и ко мне приходят какие-то мысли. Это не так, что у меня есть какой-то мастер-план, и я следую за ним. Скорее не так.
So it's more maybe less, it's less the idea of how to do it than to create certain like small situations and then more of them. And one gets kind of, it's more for me like a library I'm trying to make. And it can be different things. So maybe it starts with these two characters. Then I see, they are I like them very much. But they are kind of lost at the same time. So that for me already is quite a good situation, because I think it is a way to bring you or us into the film. First of all, maybe it's not more than that. And then we found the clothes, and it was actually Valentina, she said, there is this strange label with this strange name, medical, so it's on one hand medical, like hospital, medical, but then it's written me, Dick, all. So, me, Dick, all. So it is kind of very strange game of words.
Where is it from, this label?
It's from Duisburg in Germany, so it's also great. So I never heard about it before. And so I contacted this one woman, like one young woman. And she was very happy. She said, I said, we are making a science fiction. She said, oh, you want the clothes, really? And I said, yeah. It was actually quite nice.
В общем, это не столько какое-то целостное понимание, как что-то сделать, а скорее это создание как можно большего количества эпизодов, как такой библиотеки эпизодов, да, я начинаю с чего-то, и затем это что-то провоцирует меня на создание дальнейших эпизодов. Например, я пишу про молодых людей. Ну, то есть,
что они потерянные,
да,
и тем самым они вызывают эмпатию, и таким образом это способ затащить зрителей в фильм. Да? Это на самом деле классическая кинематографическая установка. Да? Мы можем войти в пространство фильма через персонажа, с которым мы себя разделяем.
И вот эта случайность с брендом одежды, Medical, мы просто случайно нашли эту одежду в Дюйсбурге, в небольшом немецком городе, и девушка, которая ее производит, она была ужасно счастлива, что мы хотим использовать ее в своем фильме.
I'm learning Russian. That's it. So it's a series because it has different episodes, so it is obviously mimicking these Netflix formats, and also with these commercials. So it's trying to be kind of rude to everybody. But I have an idea of the next film that's true too, and it also has to do with artificial intelligence. So I ordered a camera, which is not built yet. So they are developing cameras where an AI algorithm is deciding what is going to be filmed. So there will be no cameraman anymore. So how about if we outsource decisions of humans? Because this is what we experience all the time. How about if we do by making the film itself, this is something that interests me. Just as.
Формат фильма и сериал, и в чем-то он как бы повторяет форматы Netflix, и там очень много рекламы, в общем, это тоже такой, я как бы фильм жесткой группы по отношению к зрителю, но на самом деле у меня действительно есть идея следующего фильма. Я заказала камеру, которая, правда, еще как бы нет на рынке, ее сейчас собирают, в нее зашит алгоритм, в нее зашит искусственный интеллект, и уже он определяет, что именно как бы пойдет в кадр, то есть не будет оператора. Что если мы отдадим на аутсорс вообще возможность принятия решений? Это, собственно, то, что происходит с нами сейчас довольно часто. Closer to the end, you said, what if we outsource decision-making process? Yeah, that's what's happening.
Yes, to outsource it to algorithms. Can be the story,
Да, то есть
can be basically everything.
And that's your idea of the next movie?
Yes, this is something that's interesting.
Ну вот, Кристиана интересует, что если вообще как бы оставить на откуп все, что касается фильма, алгоритмом, то есть и сюжет, и действующие лица, что попадает в кадр, что.
So, to make it a bit clear, this question of, so we are exposed to decisions made by algorithms in terms of smart cities, but one could also argue that it might be interesting to use this technology ourselves in a different way. You know, a lot of these things that Google, for example, is coding, it is actually free. One can use it. I mean, it's not free, it's the same thing. One can use it. And the trade-off is the interest of Google, okay, how are these people using it? So I am working together with a coder, and we are making music. A lot of the music you hear is actually made by algorithms. It is not made by human. So it's not, I'm not the composer of this music. I decided the data, and we tried out different algorithms, and then it made this score, and then we performed it live. And most of the music you hear is made like that. And the question for me that's interesting is there one aspect of this technology that we actually might like? This could also be, you know, I'm not a technophobe, you know, it's not that I think, okay, let's go back to the woods, let's make some banya and let's grow some food in the backyard, and no, it's not the point, you know, it's more, is there a way how we can actually take this technology and use it in a different way? This is, I think, something we really have to think about. And that it's not only Google that's using that.
Sort of expropriation, or
yes, hijack. Yes. Or alternative use, you know.
Have you seen a movie made by artificial intelligence? It's already. Have you seen a movie made by artificial intelligence?
Yes, there's a small version. Yes, but most of these things, they're actually not really true. I know if by music, there's also one Beatles song, but it turned out I was in contact with these people in Paris. They shut down their operation. It's usually not true. There are some algorithms, but then they see it's not really what we want, and so a lot of humans actually turn them off.
Actually, this movie was impossible to see because so boring, so maybe it was
yeah, but still, I would say it's still too much narrative. I don't believe it. Strange narrative, but still.
Yeah, why not? Because everything is narrative, so it's most easy to take over narrative.
No, but I mean, but it's not sampling. You know, it's not. We should not. It's not like okay, we take this part, but not at all. It's not visualization. It's not. It's something that is created from the third based on statistics, based on
it's just an algorithm. Artificial intelligence. I how it can be something more than an algorithm.
No, the algorithm
No,
is technology.
Leibniz was also opposed to the idea of the possibility to build a really thinking in the same sense as human thinking. It's not a mechanical process. Something
Yes,
fundamentally different.
But the question that for me is interesting is, okay, if it's not like a human, it might be something that's interesting. It is not by a human, but it is also not only mechanical. It is something in between that's different. And maybe this could be really interesting.
Because the mixture of something which is
determined or something new
and some chance, right?
Yeah.
Chance.
No.
But nothing else.
That's different.
Otherwise, there has to be a kind of formation of the subjectivity on the part of the machine, right? And that's what we can't really
Окей, ну если суммировать, то, что интересует Кристиана, это, собственно, возможность использования вот этих технологий искусственного интеллекта самими нами, то есть не корпорациями, может быть, мы сами каким-то образом прибегать к ним и использовать их в своих целях. Например, музыка, которая звучала в видео, музыка, которая написана с помощью алгоритмов, написана алгоритмами, а затем она исполнена Кристианом.
Questions?
Thank you. I'll try to make it short. To some degree, that will second the Sergei's question. But I wonder if we consider it some sort of a sketch of a new ontology or rather metaphysics based on this primary element of data. Do you believe what is somewhat suggested by the film, I think, that it still could be grasped, the situation, this new situation, by the rhetorics and by the means of, let's say, classical capitalist criticism? Not capitalist, but anti-capitalist criticism. What could be, to some point, suggested by the character that wears, that sports this AE sweater. Yeah. Because he's narrating, like, you know, the basics of what we can call the classical, let's say, Marxist, maybe neo-Marxist critics. And at the same point, in, let's say, in your intro, you said about statistics and the question of minority. But I think that, quite on the contrary, the problem is that there's no longer a minority with this big data thing, because you can't hide in this, you know, in this tales of statistics no more, because it addresses you as an individual, because it has your data. So I think, well, that's basically the question. Do you think that it still could be grasped and could be criticized by, let's say, classical instruments to some degree neo-Marxist rhetorics, but the problem of means of production, let's say, so what you said, that we can, you know, just get them and rearrange them and use them in other ways? Or does this new situation, if we believe that it's new, suggest and would require some new sort of criticism as well? So that's, I guess, the question. I don't know, I can try to translate myself as well. Да, вопрос во многом повторяет вопрос Сергея и сводится к тому, что если мы рассматриваем этот фильм как некоторый набросок новой онтологии или новой метафизики, построенной на вот этом первом элементе данных, возможно ли до сих пор использовать классическую критическую мысль, марксистскую в первую очередь, там, неомарксистскую, на что намекает в частности вот, персонаж, который носит свитер с надписью AI Unit, и на что намекает во многом сам Кристиан, говоря о проблеме меньшинств, которые оказываются незамечены в статистике, или о проблеме вот, реорганизации средств производства, такие классические базовые элементы марксистской критики. Или же, если мы верим, что этот новый элемент действительно производит что-то новое, требуется, и, соответственно, переустроить язык критики, требуется другая критика для того, чтобы с этой ситуацией взаимодействовать.
So I think you are asking the most difficult question concerning this film. Yes, so that's very good. This guy, this person, this that we only see from the back, this AI person, or once it might be this Peter phrase, but we don't know. It might be a coincidence. It could be maybe anybody. It is kind of a representation of this question, because this, if we could answer this question, we would know how to deal with this situation of the present.
Вот этот персонаж, который носит свитер со словами «unit», возможно, это тот самый фрейза, но он и является, репрезентацией этого вопроса. Если бы мы на самом деле могли ответить на него, то мы могли бы как-то изменить всю эту ситуацию, то есть как-то активно действовать.
So, for example, I was reading the Machine Fragment of Marx, also in this context, and there's one edition in German that has a very good, where the introduction tries to draw a connection to the Marxist analysis of machines into the internet age. It was interesting to read it, but it was not really a key for me. And I think really the main difficulty is the invisibility of what we are faced with. It is always very difficult to describe something that's invisible.
But that's what Marx did, to some respect, because the worker, the proletariat, never been visible before the initial critique by Marx. That's what's happening with the social critics. It finds something that is invisible and makes it visible, and that transforms the situation.
Yeah, but then maybe this sort of new Marx person that is actually describing the politics of data. This is what we should think of. This is what I try to do. Invisibility of data.
Можно я translate? Кристиан сказал, что вообще вопрос, который Максим задал, это прямо ключевой вопрос к этому фильму, потому что, в принципе, фильм об этом вопросе. И вот эта фигура человека с надписью AI Unit, она, в общем, олицетворяет этот вопрос, потому что это может быть вот этот фрейз, да, или какой-то другой современный критик, и он как бы ходит, это все критикует, но таким образом он как бы олицетворяет вопрос о вопросе, что ли, да, вот, как бы достаточно ли критика. The guy in black t-shirt symbolizes or manifests the question itself, right? Is this criticism sufficient or not? So
Also the question, which is also kind of old, is it possible to, if one is inside the problem, to talk about it, or is there an outside within something that does not permit an outside?
I'll continue to say
answer
topology.
And then Christian said that for him the difference between pre-digital and digital is this invisibility, really. Различие между цифровым и постцифровым, потому что постцифровое, оно в области, в смысле цифровое, да, доцифровое, цифровое, оно создает эту ситуацию невидимости и как практически невозможности ухватить выйти. Но Максим совершенно заметил, что для 19 века Маркс вот действительно в своем анализе «Капитала», книжки «Капитала», осуществил вот эту процедуру превращения невидимого в видимое. Да? То есть вот до этого момента это самая прибавочная стоимость никто как бы не замечал, никто не понимал, как работает классическое предприятие. После того, как Маркс это изучил и описал, ему стало сразу понятно. Вот. То же самое, возможно, гипотетически в отношении этих современных форм. Да, еще Кристиан добавил, что проблема всегда в том, что увидеть что-то, вот это как бы распознать это невидимое, невозможно, как правило, находясь внутри ситуации, да, для того, чтобы это произошло это как бы откровение, ревеляция, опредмечивание этого невидимого. Нужно найти способ выйти, но, видимо, в условиях цифровых отношений у нас все меньше и меньше шансов to step outside, выйти из этой ситуации. I would also add a question.
I have one more sentence.
Okay.
To say. So, the speaker phrase says at some point there are no workers anymore. And so what one can see workers in the film, these are these people who are cleaning. And they are kind of representing, obviously, the people who are providing the service. You know, that all this, the promise of the smartness is available. We need this type of exploited class, so there is actually something that is connected to even the, you know, traditional Marxist analysis. But it is, in my observation, overshadowed by something that, where it's not only the invisibility of data, it is the invisibility of the contract. And it is replacing something that we maybe traditionally would say, we have a contract, each of us, or groups, with society. You know, suddenly, with whom do we have the contract? It's completely unclear. And so there it becomes difficult to actually talk about it.
Ну, можно сказать, что в фильме этот марксистский как план представлен очевидным образом в виде вот этих уборщиков, которые, ну там, было несколько сцен, как вытирание пыли, там, мытья полов. Это как бы такая классическая схема. Но есть и другой план, вот, более загадочный план, относящийся к другим людям, которые являются участниками некого контракта. Но этот контракт, это уже не тот контракт простой, капиталистический контракт, когда ты продаешь свое время, а это вот эта новая система отношений, когда, например, мы вступаем с Google, тем же какие-то контрактные отношения, которые мы на самом деле косвенно прямым образом подтверждаем, но смысл этого контракта для нас никогда до конца не есть. В какой-то момент ты ложишься на том, вот я как бы действительно выполняю свой некий контракт, но с кем этот контракт? Этот контракт как бы с обществом, то есть противоположный полюс, the other pole of the contract becomes unclear. Что как бы предположим полюс этого контракта, его субъект как другой, он как бы становится совершенно немыслимым, как бы неизвестным.
No one to blame.
Yeah, exactly. It is kind of, but it's also true what Maxim. It is also true what Maxim said, that Marx was the first one to show it, and we are lacking this person.
Yeah, because we need 70 years to observe it. We need the time to
too long. Too long. Sorry.
Maybe artificial intelligence will make us live longer when we.
Yeah, but it will rather change the world so drastically. I mean, there are these predictions that most of our jobs bye-bye, you know, and then what? You know?
Back to woods. Nothing to do.
Yeah, nothing to do. It usually leads to like civil war at least.
Yeah.
I think.
Drugs, drinks, and kill each other.
I could add to this that yesterday there was Alexander report from Latvia, and he said it's kind of meaningless to talk about the future if we don't talk about conflict. Conflictless situation is kind of also timeless situation. So time and conflict, or even violence, are decisive.
No, but we should talk about the present. This is the other.
Yeah, this is also what he was saying. We should talk about present.
Я
добавил, что вчера у нас был здесь Александр Попов, который сказал, что в смысле говорить о будущем, не имея в виду, не замышляя о конфликтах, и даже конфликты, связанные с насилием, то есть там, где нет конфликта эффективной силе фактически можно говорить, что нет времени.
Нет будущего.
Время и конфликт — это две стороны одного и того же. Вот. Но Кристиан сказал, что надо думать по-настоящему. Это, в принципе, была основная мысль похода. So we have to think about a real or a present presence, a real reality, which is probably not what we take for presence. Presence which is behind behind the level of the simple appearance.
Yes, but then also one can say that images, because the word is so image-driven, images that can maybe show something that in text, you know, maybe this analysis might not be a text, it might be something that is actually, that images themselves can show this better, because it is not so, it is less cognitive, or the explanation might be less on a cognitive level, and more on something that is, you know, where the blurriness is part of the analysis, like in a good sense. This I hope. Максим?
Может быть, надо не в том смысле, что совершенно закрывать глаза на мир каждому, то есть мир видимости, потому что мир видимости состоит из этих имиджей, и они в этой своей даже как поверхности, как ни странно, могут быть более информативными, как раскрывающими существо, даже в том случае, если это все сопровождается какой-то размытостью. Вот, эта размытость хороша, в смысле, эта размытость может быть, истолкована в хорошем смысле. If I understand it right, it's one of the instruments or kind of ways to deal with the material and ways in which you make it work. Like kind of taking this blurriness in a good sense.
Yeah, or that I think that images, they are the appropriate media for this type of subject.
Образы, картинки — это подходящий медиум для этого предмета смотрения. More questions?
I don't have a question. I have a small comment about what was said. First, I think referring to what Maxim was asking, from the film, at least it is clear that the basic question lies in how will it be used. What was the question? What was the question for which the artificial intelligence was the answer? So it's clear from the film that if the aim is like this capitalistic circle, then the consequence can be whatever. But of course it is too wide to say so. I like this point about the present, and I liked two frames in the montage line in the film where it was Moscow on the Red Square with the soldiers passing by, and the next was I don't know, maybe it was some kind of invasion. Maybe, yeah.
But it was built by Soviet trade show from the 50s.
Yeah, it looked actually like the trade show, but the montage they were edited together perfectly, and the thing is that makes us understand even in this, because we see these people who are wiping the surfaces, and what you said about the image, the surface, the image, and this wiping process is also a very good rhythm. And these two sequences with Moscow and Beijing, they clearly make us have at least one very certain answer to this question, that as we have the present political state, then these technologies will be used for the current beneficiaries. So it will be military, governmental, state forces in Russia, as you said, with this smart space technology. And it will be same with, I don't know, North Korea Korea or China and this kind of states, and it will be different for neoliberal developed capitalistic Western countries, which is also, I think, obvious, but it's important to keep it in mind that there is a huge influence of politics on the preliminary level of all these processes. And the third thing that is coming out, and it's also visually interesting with this film, that like the main heroes, these characters that are here, they're a little bit like children, and I like this children topic, which is in it, for playgrounds and their these childish things, and but at the same time, if we have this situation that like at least the first 60%, the first share from these technologies go to the present time beneficiary, like the state or the huge companies. Of course, this situation will lead, and is also, and it already exists, to the formation of the class of independent neoliberal kind of kids, or the guys who sit, for example, in the Silicon Valley. This class, they also exist, and they read all these books about transurfing of the real and whatever, all this what's called the New Age books, but multiplied on the neoliberal economical theory, and they really believe that the world can be changed. I know these people, especially who work in the digital sector, and this is also the line of the division that can be really clear even from this film as a symptom. And I think from the real situation too, so the class of free, so-called free people, the people who can really use these technologies in a way of being equal to it, not being used by it more than they use it. So I think it is formed now, and it will be existing. And this is an interesting thing. Never mind of the political situation that exists in this or that state. So this is the global consequence of it, I think, as we can get from the film. So this is my comment. Thank you.
Could you translate it?
Does everyone need translation?
Yeah, this was a very interesting point. I was also thinking that on one hand, probably what you show in this film, this level of kind of manipulation, is what kind of transcends the difference between Eastern and Western ways of managing the society. But in fact, it's not completely so. And of course, there is this kind of Manuel Castells writes about these pioneers of the internet and how liberating was this idea in the beginning. So in his view, there is some sort of cycle, very promising beginning, and then much more problematic and disappointing second phase. But still, there is this kind of liberating potential in this technology. The question for me is the question of I can say kind of willingness to be ruled. Like one of the groups which works in our seminar from Novosibirsk, they work on the topic of kind of mandatory or even enforced creativity. So they invent a machine that CTS machine that actually induces people to be kind of creative. It's a kind of critical project. But on the other hand, they talk about a kind of ecstasy this condition could provoke within these people. And you also showed some kind of masochistic humiliation scene, and people kind of absolutely voluntarily choose this way of, let's say, spending time, extracting pleasure from reality, right? And what do you think?
Yes, I agree, but you know, I was thinking also to include, but I thought then it was too much. I know all these people who are doing these ayahuasca ceremonies and this stuff. You know, a lot of people now. It's almost like, yes, I need a new iPhone and I need ayahuasca therapy, and my coffee needs to be with soya milk. You know, this is the type of. And I'm not so sure about my sexuality. It's not enough if there's women's and men's toilet, because you know, this type of differentiating individuality, it is also leading away from what you are describing. You know, these are in a way basic questions. It's no surprise that the internet became totally commercialized, because this is a commercialized world. And this guy, Murray Bookchin, he's saying if we live in a capitalist society, people towards each other, they act in a brutal way. And in the same way, they act towards nature. So we should not be surprised that humans are the biggest danger for, you know, for this planet, obviously. So we might disappear anyway. You know, this is maybe with AI it starts, and not because the killer robot is going to come in the door, but it's because it's just too much. Like everything could be. So.
But what about willingness to obey? Well, I mean, obviously there is such a thing. What do you think about it?
Yes, but I would say also, yes, I agree with the Bill speaking, but I would also say some type of hacking could also be some way of disrupting in a different way. Yes, I know some people. I'm not a coder, but I know some people. They would not work for these big companies, but it's only a few who would not do it. But it's difficult to say. But on the other hand, the demonstrations and in the film, they look like from a different time.
So can we say that the main question is, does decent and good people exist at all?
How about you?
No, I'm not.
You're not so confident about yourself.
No. I think it should be dangerous if somebody will say to you,
yeah. Well, it's also this big question about self-confidence in this world, and the issue with human resources with these characters. Are they confident? Obviously not.
Maybe the girl more. That was a coincidence.
Okay, maybe we should kind of, if there are no more urgent questions,
go to our Facebooks.
Yeah, or we could I don't know, go somewhere outside and have a beer or drink and continue in kind of more relaxed.
Good idea.
Way.
Yes.
Thank you.
Спасибо.
Спасибо всем.
Thank you.